The Toronto Raptors are finalizing a trade to send OG Anunoby. Toronto getting RJ Barrett and Emmanuel Quickly in return.
The very first blockbuster trade of the NBA season is officially here, and fans don't know what to think about it. It's a player that has been in trade rumors for the past year and a half, and it's a player that the Toronto Raptors originally weren't willing to part with. And the same could be said for the New York Knicks as well. Fans are excited but confused at how the New York Knicks and Toronto Raptors decided to make this trade, and both sides feel a little conflicted about the deal. So we're here to break it all down for you guys. This is our second upload of the day. But before we get to the content, if you want to support the channel a little extra, check out our channel memberships program. Members do get content a little bit earlier periodically. Like our Kevin Durant video was shown to our members about 8 hours sooner than when it went live this morning. And make sure you drop like, subscribe, and turn on our notifications to help the channel grow, because no matter what news comes down, I'll make sure that I'm the first to let you know. Now that we get all that out of the way, cue the intro. We made $1,100 off of a $20 entry on Prize Picks. And it wasn't just me, it was everyone that followed these picks on my Instagram story. And the best feeling is the amount of people that made money as a result of this. I mean, bam, bam, bam. Bam! My DMs were flooded, so the best part for me was seeing you guys make money as well. But we're not done yet. If you haven't signed up for Prize Picks, use my promo code microphone to double your deposit up until $100 on Prize Picks. And I give away my picks on a daily basis for free on my Instagram story and now my Snapchat story. We're having so much fun doing this. I'm so happy that I made you guys some money. And thank you, Prize Picks, for the sponsor. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? The New York Knicks selected RJ Barrett with the 3rd overall pick in the 2019 NBA draft, following Zion Williamson and John Morant. And given the circumstances that RJ Barrett was in, including a head coach that was fired in the middle of the season, he had a pretty decent rookie year, averaging 14 points per game, shooting 32% from 3. Clearly not the player they were hoping he'd be, but given the circumstances the Knicks were in, it made sense that he didn't necessarily get off to the greatest start. Enter Tom Thibodeau, who would put RJ Barrett in his best situation of his career. Tom Thibodeau decided to put RJ Barrett in specific spot-up shooting situations, which would elevate RJ Barrett's three-point percentage to 40% from around the arc and allowed him to average 17.6 points per game. The New York Knicks would also make it to the NBA playoffs that year and would finish 4th in the Eastern Conference. Pair this with Julius Randle's near MVP season, and we got one of the most electrifying playoff matchups in NBA history. I mean, this matchup versus the Atlanta Hawks is making NBA fans clamor for the New York Knicks to return to relevance, because I want to see more moments like this.
Last 3 years, they're psyched to be back in the postseason.
And RJ Barrett would even build upon that season, averaging 20 points per game the year after and shooting 34% from around the arc. However, the New York Knicks would finish in 11th place in the Eastern Conference. But luckily for them, in the 2022 offseason, help was on the way. The New York Knicks made their best transaction of the Leon Rose era when they signed Jalen Brunson to a 4-year, $104 million contract. Jalen Brunson and the New York Knicks were a match made in heaven, as Brunson was able to come over from the Dallas Mavericks and immediately averaged 24 points per game, shot 42% from 3, and once again, the New York Knicks were a playoff team. The problem is, when you're in these types of situations, it gives organizations a little less time to place a point of emphasis on their young players' development. And this is what happened with DeAndre Ayton in Phoenix. The Phoenix Suns drafted DeAndre Ayton with the #1 overall pick, and he started out great, but the moment the bubble ended, it was clear that the Suns were ready to contend. And the point of emphasis wasn't on DeAndre Ayton developing as a player, developing a three-point jumper, or anything of that sort. It was more on trying to figure out ways to ensure that DeAndre Ayton could contribute to wins for the Phoenix Suns so they could win a championship, especially once they traded for Chris Paul. And the same essentially happened to RJ Barrett. He was no longer the focal point of the offense, and the Knicks stopped trying to make him the focal point of the offense. You pair that with the fact that Tom Thibodeau historically isn't big on trying to develop younger players, and you started to see RJ Barrett fall back to earth a little bit. He still averaged 19.6 points per game last season off of 31% shooting from three, and this year he averaged 18 points per game while shooting 33% from three. But what tells a different story is his advanced analytics. Throughout his entire career with the New York Knicks, RJ Barrett's advanced analytics looked terrible. Just take a look at his OBPM throughout his entire career with the Knicks. It has constantly been negative. Look at his DBPM with the New York Knicks throughout his career. It's also been negative, and the combined box plus minus as a result were in the deep negatives. Well, you combine that with the fact that his VORP has only been positive in his sophomore season and his third year with the Knicks, and you understand why the New York Knicks started entertaining moving on from RJ Barrett. RJ Barrett was born and raised in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, where the Toronto Raptors play. And the Toronto Raptors have had a very bumpy couple of years ever since they won the 2019 NBA Finals. So they're in a very admirable position. They're a team that has a plethora of assets and a very promising young player to build around, and they're trying to figure out unique ways to build around said young player. However, it's been a very tough start. The Raptors started with a 12-19 record. Clearly, the big three of Scottie Barnes, OG Anunoby, and Pascal Siakam was not going to succeed, which really sucks considering the fact that the Toronto Raptors got a trade offer from the New York Knicks last year that included multiple first-round picks for OG Anunoby. But since they waited that additional year, OG Anunoby now becomes a free agent at the end of the season, which means his value plummeted a decent amount. And that offer of multiple first-round picks was no longer on the table. And given the fact that the Raptors are clearly not heading towards the playoffs, they really had no choice but to make this trade. According to Adrian Wojnarowski, Toronto Raptors are finalizing a trade to send OG Anunoby to the New York Knicks for a package including RJ Barrett, Emmanuel Quickley, and draft considerations, which is absolutely insane. The Toronto Raptors are acquiring a New York 2024 second-round pick via the Detroit Pistons, and in this trade is also Malachi Flynn and Precious Achiuwa. So there are multiple thoughts about this trade the moment it went down. On one hand, New York Knicks fans were pissed off at the fact that the Knicks refused to trade RJ Barrett for Donovan Mitchell, but here they are trading him for OG Anunoby. A lot of people are saying that the New York Knicks got fleeced. But to be honest, if you really did a deep dive on this trade, it makes a lot of sense. The New York Knicks aren't that far from being within the top four of the Eastern Conference. The right trade could potentially put them in a situation where they could be contending in the Eastern Conference. I don't look at the New York Knicks as a team that needs even more offense. I look at them as a team that needs significantly more defense. And from every perspective, OG Anunoby is an upgrade from RJ Barrett. He can hit the three-pointer more consistently, he's remarkable on the defensive side of the ball, and is one of the league's best defenders. If you really think about it, the New York Knicks were hoping RJ Barrett could become 50% of OG Anunoby so he could play next to Jalen Brunson. I'm not necessarily worried about that because at the end of the day, that is a huge upgrade for the New York Knicks. The issue is the New York Knicks' depth kind of takes a significant hit here. Both Emmanuel Quickley and RJ Barrett were handicapped in terms of their future with the New York Knicks because both of them were never going to become the Knicks' top player. Emmanuel Quickley was behind Jalen Brunson and RJ Barrett was stagnating for the past couple of years. But this is a huge risk for the New York Knicks as well because now they need to spend the rest of the year convincing OG Anunoby to re-sign with them as opposed to leaving them in free agency after giving up one of their young assets. This is also a remarkable story for RJ Barrett because he gets to return to home. He gets to go back home to Toronto, Canada and play in the exact same state that he was born in. Ian Begley mentions that RJ Barrett loves New York and loved the idea of remaining in New York per sources familiar with the matter. If he's going to play somewhere else, he sees Toronto as a remarkable option. Obviously, it's his home city and he's the big part of the Canadian national team.
In the wake of this Anunoby trade, but one team that was not involved in the discussions felt like the Knicks probably should have given up more draft compensation, so they were surprised that Knicks didn't have to give up more draft compensation in that trade. Knicks obviously having a bevy of first-round picks, their own, and owning 4 additional first-round picks in the future to work with on different trades. I mean, I don't think they're done. I think this was maybe one of 2 bigger moves that are, I don't want to say in the plans, but I think general framework of how they're thinking. And so I don't think they're done. They still have assets to work with in terms of their draft picks, some other players. But today, it's OG Anunoby coming to New York, giving the Knicks a very strong defender and a strong perimeter shooter.
At the end of the day, this trade makes a lot of sense. The Toronto Raptors get a brand new young player that was born in Toronto to pair with Scotty Barnes. Maybe it works out, maybe it doesn't. At the end of the day, at least RJ Barrett will be under contract. But in addition to this, the New York Knicks fill in multiple positions of need for themselves. For example, they had a 38-year-old Taj Gibson playing meaningful minutes for themselves at the backup center position. Precious Achiuwa takes up those minutes, thank God. Emmanuel Quickley will provide instant offense. Emmanuel Quickley didn't really have much of a future on the New York Knicks with Jalen Brunson. His ceiling has now increased. And what makes this even more exciting is now everyone's eyes are turning to Pascal Siakam. Pascal Siakam has been involved in Golden State Warriors rumors for quite some time now. And according to Adrian Wojnarowski, the Raptors are expected to continue to explore trades involving Pascal Siakam. Now, another interesting tidbit from this is the fact that the Golden State Warriors recently said that they would be open to trading Andrew Wiggins, according to this insider. Though I've said in the past that the Warriors might be reluctant to trade Wiggins, I've since heard that this would not be a major barrier for the Warriors to explore Wiggins' trade market, especially if he can't play with Jonathan Kuminga and the Warriors decide that Kuminga is their full-time small forward. Andrew Wiggins was also born in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, so the Toronto Raptors have an opportunity to do something really cool here if they're compensated for it properly. Pascal Siakam is without a doubt their biggest trade chip at this point, so they would need to get adequate compensation if they were to trade him for a package centered around Andrew Wiggins, while Andrew Wiggins was in the midst of one of his worst seasons to date. At the end of the day, I give the New York Knicks an A. They needed to make this trade for quite some time. OG Anunoby is a huge upgrade. Precious Achiuwa also helps them fortify their bench a little bit. And for the Toronto Raptors, I give them a B-. They should have made this trade about a year ago. That's my only critique about them. I'm happy that they were able to get something for OG Anunoby, but at the same time, what were you thinking? Did you think the big 3 of Pascal Siakam, Scotty Barnes, and OG Anunoby were magically going to win you a championship this year? Grade the trade for me in the comment section down below. And if you missed our previous upload, we uploaded it literally 4 hours before this breaking news. Kevin Durant found himself in the exact same situation once again, and it only took him about a year and a half to pull it off. I'll see you guys over there, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.